Medicare prescription drug coverage. Next slide, please. How does Medicare Part D work? As I said, it's a voluntary program. It is optional. You can, if you want to, choose a plan and join. The plans all have formularies. There are thousands and thousands of drugs that have been approved for retail pharmacy sale, but not all drugs that are available are covered under Medicare Part D. So therefore the plans have formularies. As a lot of you probably are well aware, when you had health insurance with prescription drug coverage, your, say, employer plan, for example, that prescription drug coverage had limits. This is the same thing with Medicare Part D. With Medicare Part D, you pay a monthly premium. You also pay deductibles and coinsurance and or co-payments. This is standard every year. CMS, as I mentioned earlier, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, who administer Medicare, makes decisions on how much a plan can charge for a deductible or co-insurance and co-payments, especially the deductibles and the co-payments in some cases. Everything else is free for all. That means that each plan can have a different monthly premium. There is no set amount for that. The only set amount under Medicare Part D is the deductible, and that can range anywhere from 0 to, for 2020, $435 as the annual deductible. Now, for those who have limited income and resources, this can become expensive, and there is extra help to help pay for these Part D costs, and Pamela will talk about that in just a couple of minutes. So, who can enroll in Part D? Anyone who has either Part A or Part B. You do not need to have both. You must, though, live in the planned service area. So, if you live in the state of Wisconsin, you must have a plan that operates in Wisconsin. You cannot join a plan, even though it may be very enticing. They may have something that really draws you in Illinois. You can't join a plan there because it is outside of the service area. You can't live outside of the United States. So if you decide you want to move to Ecuador and enroll in Medicare Part D, you will not be able to do that. And you must actively enroll to join. There is only very limited circumstances for automatic enrollment into Medicare Part D. And so in most cases, most people have to actively join and fill out an application for the plan they want to be in. Next slide, please. What is covered under Medicare Part D? Prescription drugs that are approved by the FDA and available for sale in the United States. Certain vaccines are covered under Medicare Part D, for example, for shingles. Insulin is covered under Medicare Part D also. Not necessarily all insulins, but the majority, and also syringes and needles that are needed for the administration of insulin are covered under Part D. Under Part D, you do not have coverage for over-the-counter medications such as cough medicines, vitamins, and minerals. Those are what are called excluded from coverage under Medicare Part D. The list is pretty long and we don't have a lot of time to go through that, but just so that you know, these are just prime examples of OTC or over-the-counter medications that are not covered. And under COVID-19, if a vaccine becomes available, it will be covered under Medicare Part D. Whether it's going to be free or not, I don't know. That's why it's not on here. So, but it would be covered. So, you have a decision. Should you enroll in Medicare Part D? It depends. And you should consider, do you have drug coverage? If you are working and you have drug coverage under a plan, you may not need to enroll in a Medicare Part D plan, especially if that coverage is considered as good as Medicare's. For example, an employer plan, in most cases, not in all, may be considered as good as Medicare Part D. Will that coverage end when you retire? And how much do your current drugs cost? And also a big consideration, what is the premium? What is the deductible cost for the Medicare Part D plans? Next slide, please. And do you have creditable coverage? If you do not have creditable coverage, and that is coverage that is considered as good as Medicare Part D, if you do not enroll in a plan, there may be a late enrollment penalty that you will have to pay as if you decide to enroll at a later date. Okay, and the next slide here we have is enrolling in a Medicare Part D plan. You can enroll during your 7-month initial enrollment period. I want everybody to realize that the 7-month initial enrollment period runs through all parts of Medicare. So you have to pay attention to this. During the annual open enrollment period, October 15th through December 7th, with coverage starting in the plan in which you enroll in on January 1st of the coming year, and during other special times for special enrollment periods. And that could be you lose coverage, you move to another state, things of that sort. And so how do you choose a Part D plan? Well, Medicare has what they call the Medicare Plan Finder, which is on their website at medicare.gov. At this website, you will need to create an account where you would create a username and password, and you would be able to access all of the different Medicare Part D plans and also Medicare Advantage plans that are available in the state of Wisconsin. You can call the ADRC for your county, just as I mentioned before, when you need to enroll in Medicare and have questions and need assistance. You can also call the Disability Drug Benefit Helpline. We are glad to help you enroll. You can call 1-800-Medicare. So there are different routes that you can go to enroll in a Medicare Advantage and or a Medicare Part D plan. Next slide, please. So we'll now turn it over to Pamela Franke, who will tell us a little bit more about Medicare Appeals, patient information, and their rights. There you go, Pamela.
All right, so the first bullet point here discusses the What's Covered app, which is an app put out by Medicare that you can download onto your phone or computer, and it will tell you generally what sorts of things Medicare covers. But just to keep in mind that it's not a guarantee of coverage. It can tell you that Medicare might cover a particular vaccine, but it's not a guarantee that in your case, under your circumstances, that will be covered. So it's just kind of general information. And that leads nicely into a discussion of appeal rights for Medicare. You do have the right to appeal if Medicare denies coverage for services that you have received. In original Medicare, you get what's called a Medicare summary notice that is sent to you, and it lists, the charges that have been billed to Medicare, and it will show you whether the services were paid for or denied. So it's really important when you get your Medicare summary notice to look it over carefully, to learn, what's happening on that Medicare summary notice. And if you see things that have been denied, in other words, not paid for by Medicare, you can file an appeal. The last page of the Medicare summary notice has a form, a brief form, and instructions about what you have to do to file that appeal. And it tells you the appeal deadline right on that last page. So when you get that Medicare summary notice, you have about 120 days to get that into the Medicare appeal office, and they have to receive it within that time frame. So you really have to keep an eye on these Medicare summary notices so you don't miss your appeal deadline. When you file that appeal, you'll eventually get a decision, and if that decision also says it won't be paid for, you have another chance to file an appeal. It's important to, enclose maybe a letter saying why you think it's wrong. You might want to get medical records or something from your doctor discussing why it should be paid for. And if that one is denied, you have a right for a hearing in front of a judge. And you get 60 days to file that appeal. And then there are some other appeal rights, which I'm just not going to go into right now, but just important to keep an eye on your Medicare summary notice and get things in before the appeal deadlines. For a Medicare Advantage plan, the appeal deadlines are generally shorter, only 60 days, and each plan has it's called an EOB, explanation of benefits. They all look a little different. It's important to acquaint yourself with your rights in your Advantage plan so that you know what to do when you get this unpaid bill and where to send it. Next slide.